I know I say this with every video, but today we're going to be trying something different once again. I'll be making my first cooking video where I'm making my favorite dish that my grandma would always make, Tostones Con Salami. The ingredients are super simple, but there are a few things that I need to explain first. So here's a shot of all the ingredients. I'm going to be going over them like one by one. First of all, plantains. These are not bananas. They're much starchier, have thicker skin, and are neutral in flavor, which allows them to be used in savory dishes. Bananas are soft, sweet, and can be eaten as is, but plantains will have to be cooked. I can go on about the confusing name for this fruit, but we'll be here all day. So, to keep it short, in the Dominican Republic, which is where my family is from, the green ones are called plátanos, or plantains, and the yellow ones are called bananas, or guineos. Some countries have the same word for both of them, some countries have the names swapped. That's just how Spanish is. It's different per country. Over time, plantains ripen, so the starch turns into sugar, making them sweet, and also making them softer. We call them plátanos maduros, or ripe plantains, which, while confusing to people outside of DR, is still different from bananas, because they'll need to be cooked as well. This is Dominican sausage, salchichón dominicano, or how we usually call it, salami. It's made from beef and pork, seasoned and already pre-cooked, so you can even like toss these in a sandwich like it's lunch meat and still be okay. The only issue is that these are hard to find if you don't live in places where the Dominican diaspora typically live. So you'll find them easily in New York and Florida, maybe Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. That I'm not 100% sure though. When I lived in Texas, I actually could not find it anywhere, and I had to actually drive one in a cooler full of ice when I visited my family in Florida, which was a 16-hour drive. So if you don't really live in these areas and you want like a similar substitute, I would say beef hot dogs are pretty similar. Like they have that same smoky and savory taste. So it's what my grandma uses when we need a substitute. These are just eggs. There's not really much about it. And canola oil. I'm not entirely sure why we use canola oil specifically, but this is what my family always used. But I will warn you, that smell will stick on your clothes when you cook with it. So be careful. You might even need a shower afterwards. And for the tools, they're pretty simple. You need a knife, a frying pan, a cutting board, or a plate works just fine, a metal press of some kind, a coffee mug will be fine, honestly, and a cooking spoon, preferably perforated so that the oil falls through, but you can just use a regular cooking spoon as well. I definitely recommend that the cooking spoon is metal though, because we're going to be dealing with hot oil. First things first, you want to make sure that your plantain is at room temperature. People often refrigerate their plantains so they last longer, but peeling it right away without letting it come to room temperature will make your life a living hell. Watch this. You cut both ends, score down the length of it, and use the tip of the knife to wedge between the skin and the flesh, and then use your fingers to do the rest. And look at that, perfect. Unfortunately for me, my plantain is a bit on the riper side, which means the plantains will not come out as crispy as I'd like, and it will have a slight hint of sweetness, but that's okay. Make sure your plantains don't have a hint of yellow for the best results. Unfortunately, the grocery store I go to kinda sucks. Next, you're going to want to cut the plantains diagonally. If you cut them straight across, the slices will be too thick and it'll be too difficult to fry the entire piece. Try to eyeball it like I do. Let's prepare the oil. You're essentially deep frying this, so use a pretty good amount to cover the whole bottom of the pan. Set the burner to medium heat so it heats up slow and steady while you wait. And now let's cut our slices of salami. As you can see, the casing is pretty tough, so unless you use a serrated knife, it's going to slip right off. Typically what I do is that I use the point to poke a hole where I'm going to cut, and then saw it using that hole as a starting point. It goes right through. Please be careful. I've been doing this for ages, so it's no sweat to me, but if you want to be safe, I'd say just saw through with a rough knife slowly. And make sure you get all the casing off. Look thoroughly because some brands have like transparent packaging, which can be hard to spot. Back to our frying pan. It should be hot and ready to cook. Put down a plantain slice with the flat side facing down and pay attention to how it reacts. Once you see the bubbling around this, you should be good to put the others down too. Make sure the heat is on medium. That way you're not stressing over it burning so quickly. I've been there a few times. Once you see that it turns from the pale peach color to a nice golden yellow, this is when you flip all of them. Even better when you see bits of brown. My mom tells me that if you tap the plantains with your cooking spoon and you hear like a hollow sound, it's ready to take out. But I think my plantains are too ripe for that to happen before burning, so I had to take them out prematurely. You can see here that it didn't cook all the way through though, but that's completely okay. My slices were just a bit too thick. Now we move on to smashing them. You can use a dedicated press like I have, I got this from Amazon, but you can also use a coffee mug, just make sure you wash the bottom first, or any other flat thing that you can apply pressure to. It's a good idea to let them cool off a bit before doing so it doesn't fall apart. You can also use the cooking spoon to carefully scrape it off, but please be patient because it'll fall apart if you rush. Now you carefully lower them into the hot pan using the spoon. If you put them in by hand, you'll risk splashing hot oil on yourself. I typically wait until it gets brown around the edges before I flip them, as I like them extra crispy myself, but golden yellow is the real indicator. When you get them out of the oil, make sure you tilt it against the edge of the pan so the oil falls through and you don't get extremely greasy plantains. I typically put a paper towel down on the plate so the excess doesn't pool at the bottom, making them soggy and gross. Next is the salami. This part is extremely easy. The salami is already cooked, so you're practically just finishing it off with a sear. It'll sizzle a lot though, so be careful. If you can't find salami, you can cut a beef hot dog down the middle and then fry them in this oil. That's what my grandma used to do when we ran out. And the flavor is largely the same. Lastly are the eggs. Now for those who have never cooked eggs in cooking oil before, I would not blame you if you want to skip out on this. Eggs in cooking oil sputter and sizzle the most, and even I still get kind of scared of it despite cooking this dish for a long time now. I typically do over easy or over medium because I like the gooey yolk for this dish, and it's like one of the only times I actually like a gooey yolk. You can do any form of eggs that you want. Once they're crispy and lacy, you flip them over and then they're done. Is it healthy? No. But one thing's for sure, it tastes really good. To finish this off, you would sprinkle some salt on it and have a nice side of ketchup for the plantains. And there you go. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this very different video, and I'll see you in the next one.